All right, everyone, we should be live. Let's make sure that's actually the case. I should probably turn my speakers off. Whoops. I don't want to hear myself echoing. Sticks in stereo, the latest new trend. So, yeah. By the way, to Salt Nest Monster, why no Newt Tech exclusive today? That's because the cat decided to over and over attack her sister, and I just got fed up with it. I had to do multiple takes of both of the main videos this morning. Thankfully, they've settled down now. Everyone's having a nap, I suppose. But it was difficult. It was like 3 fucking times. I tried making 2 different exclusives, actually. I had 2 different subjects lined up, and I ended up not making either of them. Let's refresh this and make sure we're live over on Rumble. I know that chat's working, which is usually a good sign. Yes, indeed, we are live on Rumble. Pour in, people. Share out the link. Get everybody aboard. It's clanking time or energy drink time. I've got 2 of them. By the way, to whoever made the giant energy drink on Pixel Planet, by the way, link in the description on both platforms, YouTube and Rumble, and pinned in chat on YouTube as well at the top. You can go in there and help us continue to take over more land. In fact, I should probably have that open over here. Make sure that's muted as well. That will take you to an area that we are clearing out. Expand the red and the yellow tiles at your leisure. It's fun. It's basically just a distraction. Everything there that you see that when you zoom out it looks rather orange is Clankdom. We control a huge chunk of Africa, and we forced the Nazis back significantly out of our area. They have retaliated by attacking the Ouroboros down at the bottom over and over again. It's fairly incessant, but I think that there is a script on that keeps it. It's sort of got self-healing capabilities, so we'll get into various news, but I will be paying attention to Pixel Planet at least a little bit, just for shits and giggles. Over 200 people, by the way, watching already on Rumble. 1,000 cross-platform already. Gary the Snail, is the next president likely a Republican? Probably Donald J. Trump. Yeah, the next president is likely a Republican, considering how shitty things are under Joe Biden. You have indicators now that there will be a greater recession than we already have. Europe is about to fall into recession, and they're not mincing words. They're not making excuses. They're saying, look, it's pretty much inevitable. Aluminum production and everything else is drying up. Huge cuts. You look at the energy prices. If the price of electricity and gas and stuff soars by 1,000%, don't you think that puts an onus on businesses that need to use energy? Imagine your local grocery store says, okay, we're just going to turn the lights off. We'll just open the windows a little bit more. Sebastian Monroe. A stick stream after 3rd shift? Yes, please. Clank. Incognito. Clank, clank, ting, ting. Afternoon, morning, sir. Yeah, right now it's early afternoon. The Wilford Brimley Rabbit. I'm a magical girl like Sailor Moon, but my wand is between my legs. I'm Wilford Brimley, and I'd like to talk to you for a few minutes about diabetes and testing supplies. Call Liberty now. Oh, boy. Best soundboard ever, by the way. One of the funniest things ever. He was in one of the Ewok movies, by the way, and pretty competent actor. And it was much better than the first Ewok movie. I think it was Battle for Endor. They had Wilford Brimley as a captain of some starship that was lost on this planet, and then he has to fix his ship or some shit, and then the Ewoks help them, and they manage to escape. Not entirely clear what happens thereafter, but I'm assuming they never went back to see Endor again, considering it got destroyed completely when the Death Star exploded. My second nephew, good morning. It's a beautiful day. Energy drinks for you, coffee for me. Yeah, the other day when we were out, I had 2 very strong coffees at a restaurant that we were at Humphreys here in Anchede. Very good restaurant, by the way. If you're ever in the area, you should drop by there. Get the club sandwich. Trust me. Just trust me. Or get their soup. It's their French onion is really on point. But I had 2 coffees, and I had already had 2 energy drinks, and I was getting actually a little bit jittery. Grandpa Nurgle, I believe in Bilbo Baggins. Yeah, watch The Hobbit sometime by Happy Family if you want to have a cheap laugh. Or the completely screwed over dub of Ralph Bakshi's Lord of the Rings. If you want hilarity for, I think it's almost 2 fucking hours, definitely do that. Anyway, we're going to get oh, Ghost Politics is here. Just spent hot all-nighter at the bathhouse. And gay pride flag, I think. I'm wondering if that's actually Ghost Politics. I'm thinking probably it's not. Either that or it's some sort of inside joke. Anyway, we'll get right into news here. Redacted Mar-a-Lago affidavit confirms Biden's DOJ fished for a crime to pin on Trump. Yes, indeed. I would like to analyze this from two perspectives. The first is the article is fundamentally correct. They went in with a warrant, specifically under the Espionage Act, to try to go through Trump's things. Now, they've already admitted that some of the documents are protected under attorney-client privilege. That's a no-no. They already overextended beyond the warrant because they grabbed his passports. That's a no-no. It looks as well as though it's a fishing expedition number 3, which is that now they've pivoted to data retention, like data storage laws that don't even carry a penalty. And that appears to be how they're going to try to go after Donald Trump, not under the Espionage Act, but specifically improper storage of government documents. Whether that actually results in anything meaningful is deeply in doubt. I would like to analyze it from a little bit of a different perspective too, as well, which is that it's not just a fishing expedition. In my opinion, at this particular point, I can't consider it a coincidence that the Hunter Biden laptop scandal, which is real, which is provable, which is very wide-sweeping and deeply damning on all levels. And there are liberal commentators admitting to this, at least on the light basis as well. I can't imagine that the new reporting on that is coincidental to the choice to persecute Donald Trump again over the Mar-a-Lago raid. I think the timing is not coincidental. That is that what I think is happening is they're trying to get soccer mom America to be distracted. Just as there was a distraction from the Hunter Biden laptop scandal during the 2020 election, we're close to midterms. The timing's not coincidental. Again, there are no coincidences in any of these things. The FBI covered that story up, coincidentally approached Facebook, etc., and told them to be careful of disinfo around the time the Hunter Biden laptop thing was dropping, while there was an astroturfing attempt to label the entire story Russian disinfo. It was not. It was entirely true, or at least mostly true. The releases we were getting were real. There was a quid pro quo involving Joe Biden. It's damning. He would not have been in any way elected had that story been corroborated by the legacy media, if questions had been properly asked, if there had been an investigation. It's quite clear what would have happened. Joe Biden's candidacy would have gone down in flames, and it probably would have been a clean sweep for the Trump campaign. Now, they're additionally trying to distract people. This time, they're going after National Archive regulations and non-laws with regards to data retention after a fishing expedition that was, again, hosted by that same FBI that we know was involved with dirty dealings as far as the Hunter Biden laptop goes, as far as Russiagate and Pissgate go. Over and over again, this seems to be happening with fair regularity, and it's always around the election time. Now, what we're told is that there's a weaponization of these total non-scandals by the evil Trump Russia-associated admin and candidacy, but it always turns out to be the opposite. And what I analyzed this morning was that even most independent content creators, many of whom I watch, I respect, I have no problem with them, aren't seeing the forest for the trees. The larger problem here is this. The FBI lied openly to people with regards to the origin of the Hunter Biden laptop story and covered themselves by going to the legacy tech sites like Facebook, that this one was admitted on Rogan a few days ago, and claiming disinformation that they knew didn't exist. They knew it wasn't Russian disinformation. They absolutely knew it, but they astroturfed as though it was. So they told one thing to the American public and an entirely different thing to the people that they were hoping would shut the story up. This is the scandal. It even goes beyond the laptop itself. It goes beyond even the quid pro Joe stuff. The real scandal is the cover-up of that scandal. It's a double scandal. Meanwhile, they're trying to astroturf the concept that Trump done goofed. This time we'll have him. This time, Orange Man will go to jail. For what? For having documents that he declassed, as is appropriate, his rank as the former president. They were declassed. He took them away. He got into a feud with the National Archives. They're not even mentioning in the more recent developments, the Espionage Act. They're not even talking about that. They're talking about improper storage of documents. We have no evidence whatsoever that anyone who was unauthorized ever saw these documents. They were simply at the Mar-a-Lago. It's a nothing burger. Jank Uger's sweaty pussy. Clankers, we got to get Adam Kinzinger to congratulate the Ghost of Kiev for his recent boxing victory. Grevin Share, Lindsey Graham should have said fiery but mostly peaceful protests instead of riots. That would have been a wise decision. Lindsey Graham, sadly, is not very wise. Ross Lee, does the Ouroboros signify a theme of being trapped in a repeating cycle or something similar? No. My particular logo, which is the Ouroboros, winged with the moon inside, represents the rising of occult knowledge. That's the rising moon. The Ouroboros represents completion, something being done, something in motion. And the wings, liberation. That's basically what my particular symbol represents. Aaron C., $1.1 billion arms sale, missiles and radar systems to Taiwan. Thoughts on how China will respond? I'm a bit worried. They'll respond by saying that they will respond, as they have over and over again. Nobody's really worried about that shit. True, the United States is run by a complete lunatic at the moment who's clearly not even in control of his bowel movements, let alone the country. I don't think that China is crazy enough to attempt a land invasion of Taiwan. They might be crazy enough to try to blockade them, which would be a huge escalation. And they would point to the United States giving them, military weaponry and so forth. I think the United States should scrap the one China policy. It's bullshit. We didn't engage in that till the middle of the 70s with the détente era anyway. We should recognize Taipei as the sole arbiter of all China and say they are the legitimate government of one China, not the commies in Beijing, and let Beijing collapse. They are entirely reliant upon foreign investment. But that would hurt the donor class in the United States, which is why it's not happening. Indeed. On Rumble, EJSO Wicked. People make a Rumble account, then subscribe to Styx, then search corruption-free news and see if that suits your style. Lol. Yeah, we'll be talking about the rise of Rumble. Shit, their app on the App Store is more popular than YouTube right now. I think it even leapfrog past TikTok. YouTube's getting it on multiple fronts because you get streaming sites and short-form video sites. And Rumble, by the way, announcing they're going to do short-form videos too now. Hyper-competitive, really gunning for YouTube. And then you've got BitChute, Odyssey, etc. Again, all growing, all eking away at what YouTube used to be and taking chunks out of it. I don't know what YouTube is up to at this point. Next news story, big one. FBI agent accused of political bias and suppressing Hunter Biden laptop leaves the bureau. The FBI agent accused of running interference in the investigation into Hunter Biden has resigned. This is Timothy Thibault, or Thibault, or I don't know. Does he pronounce it in the Thibault, like the French way? Or is it Thibault, or I don't know. Who gives a shit? Anyway, just another part on the Hunter Biden laptop cover-up. We shouldn't be talking about the Hunter Biden laptop scandal at this point. We should be talking about the secondary, much larger scandal, which was the covering up of that scandal. It involved the FBI. It involved craptivists. It involved the legacy media, big tech. It involved the entire deep state. This is literally what Trump was warning about for multiple years. JFK touched upon it a little bit too. Then he ended up dead. Wonder why. This has been referred to before. This is the military-industrial educational complex at work. It's branched out into communications and taken over the public square. It's both the greatest advantage and disadvantage of the internet. You can get everyone together communicating live in a million different ways, but then you're also empowering other people potentially to suppress that information and cherry pick through it to make sure that the proles, the lemmings, see only what you want them to see. This corporation is good because they agree with Klaus Schwab. That corporation, which does literally the same thing, offers exactly the same products, engages in the same behavior, is bad. The latter one will have a bunch of reports on how they use slave labor or the wrong plastic or something. The former corporation, they just invested in green energy and they're woke. Even if the latter corporation did exactly the same thing, they're not going to get credit for it. It's an attempt to manipulate reality. It should be noted, by the way, with Timothy Thibault. Thibault, again, whatever. He was not involved with the Mar-a-Lago business, although other agents subject to the Durham probe are. So you're seeing a little bit of various agency corruption here. I think that goes without saying. And also, again, as with this morning's video, let's dispel the hyperbole. He was not dragged out of the FBI building kicking and screaming. He tendered his resignation, presumably after being asked politely to resign. In other words, hey, we want you to resign. You better fucking resign because we can't deal with this. Keep your pension and go fuck off, basically. They let him go, and then he got escorted out, which is standard procedure because he's no longer an agent, and therefore there's sensitive information all around because it's the FBI headquarters, and so he's not allowed to go into the side room to have some jollies with his co-workers for the last time. No, he has to leave the building. So he was not fired. He was not dragged out of the building or something like that. But it is a win. And again, the analysis is something that is being missed by even the most skilled of content creators. This is an opportunity to point to this and show it to other people who are still on the fence because, you know, the partisans, they're not going to change their mind and say, look, here's an FBI agent who helped to cover up a major scandal. There was political bias involved, and he's gone now. The FBI is effectively owning up to the fact that there was a problem here. He'd already been stripped of his management position. Now he's out completely. He's resigned. Therefore, why would you go along with the propaganda that the FBI are really these steely-faced Nick Valentine-looking G-men out in the shadows looking for criminals like fucking Batman or something when we know that the political bias can occur? Therefore, why would you trust the Mar-a-Lago raid? Why would you assume that there was no political bias there? It involves very similar things, carefully timed around elections. The connection is quite obvious. That's an opportunity for all of you out there that want to spread some positive propaganda, some pro-liberty messaging. Robot Trucker, there is a conspiracy that nukes are not real. I would invite them to watch a video of nuclear weapons blowing up and of radiation burns at Hiroshima, etc. They should play around with radioactive materials for a while, and then they should study very basic chemistry to understand why nuclear explosions are very much possible. Skycloud Rain, speaking of China, have you had a chance to check out LeoY86 channel? He covers China. Wanted to see what you think of his takes. I have not had a chance. Let me, just a sec. Like 86. I'll put that in for later. Thank you. Always appreciate such tips. Hopium Gardener, what's your rebuttal to Scott Greer saying lolberts collect guns like Funko Pops and don't care if Antifa is armed at child drag shows? I would say if they're not shooting anyone, they're not breaking any law, they have the right to stand there, especially in a place like Texas, at the drag show. They have the right to stand there with guns. That's entirely separate from the perversions going on at the Groomer Festival. That is something to be tackled at the legal level, not by storming in with fucking plate carriers and guns. I do like the hypocrisy, though, because the same leftoids that will celebrate, you know, Antifa members that are armed with, I think, AK-47s in that case, they're not going to use an AR because it's, you know, U.S. made. So they use their tanky weapons, their inferior weapons, standing there with guns. They're hailed as heroes. They're defending democracy or something. Meanwhile, people across the street who aren't armed, those are bigots. Those are extremists. One of these things is not like the other. Imagine if the shoe was on the other foot and it was a bunch of people with Gadsden flag plate carriers and AR-15s outside of an evangelical convention. All of a sudden, Antifa are there to protest the fascists. It really is a double standard. Shane Mufali, remember when the AstroTurf that Trump tried to strangle Secret Service? Don't know how many people take anything legacy media says at face value. Yeah, that story died with a thud, didn't it? You haven't heard anything much about that lately. Supposedly, Donald Trump is so unhinged, he tried to strangle the driver of the presidential SUV. But I haven't heard anything about it lately. I wonder why. I would think that'd be bigger than the Mar-a-Lago raid. He assaulted a Secret Service agent. Clearly, he's nuts, right? Well, I mean, fuck, you've got the best story ever there. Donald Trump is violently unhinged. Yet they're not talking about it. That's because it's bullshit. E. Lombard, I'm old and can't figure out the pixel thing, but I can donate. Thanks, Sticks. Yeah, all you do is you change pixels and zoom in and out. and have fun building whatever you want to build. The good stuff. Shout out to my YouTube or Seeking Liberty on Rumble. Any tips or suggestions for traveling vids, locations or historical or occult information? Traveling vids. I don't really do those myself. Not very good at it. I prefer to just sit here and rant for an extended period of time. Just look up, what was it? Shadowlands Haunted Index. If you're anywhere in the United States, you'll find plenty of haunted locations, supposedly. I think Shadowlands still exists. It's a very old style 2000s-esque site. They haven't updated it in the better part of a decade. E. Lombard, Peter Valentine. I picture Peter Strzok and Weaselface. Apologies to weasels everywhere. No, Nick Valentine from Fallout. Skycloud Rain. The left unintentionally makes Trump sound badass by that Secret Service story. I wish he was that cool. And even if he did, he can. He's the president. Washington did more to his troops for far less. Yeah, you've had presidents who have assaulted people. Look at Andrew Jackson. But there's no corroboration that that story is close to true. Iron Maiden. Hey, Sticks, my fiance sees me watching you and says, oh, you're watching that brony guy again. I ask, how is he a brony? She says, I don't know. He just looks like it. Number 1, can you please confirm or deny these outrageous accusations? Thanks. No, I'm not into that horse shit. Horse shit. Good pun. Unintentional. Anyway, next news story. So yeah, Thibault is out, and that is significant, but not for the reason that anyone else is reporting on it for. You should watch my main video this morning that I made on it about Thibault being out. If you want the true skinny on that story, and I spend a little bit more time on it. Next one, Samantha Max reporting this. Where's she from? She's from WPLN. Credit card companies track your purchases based on the type of retailer where you bought them. There are unique codes for grocery stores, airlines, and even wig and toupee stores. I did not know that. I guess they want to give that to your health insurance company. Hey, his hair's not actually real, so he might ask you for some medication. But not for gun dealers. Many New York lawmakers want to change that. Yes, indeed. And this is a prelude to something else. I'll get into that briefly. The state of New York wants to track and trace you if you buy a gun with a credit card. Now, I don't know why you would do that instead of just going and withdrawing cash and buying the gun in cash. It's easier. And that's why I think this is the lead up to something else. This is effectively a bait and switch. The bait is, hey, we want to be able to track people that buy guns and tell them that, tell people it's a suspicious purchase, basically. Dozens of New York lawmakers want MasterCard and American Express to flag suspicious gun purchases. That's the bait. We need to track these because of criminals. Yes, the average criminal goes into the legit licensed gun store with an FFL and everything else and whips out their MasterCard and buys the next piece that they're going to use at their murder. That makes a whole lot of sense. Clearly, that's a societal problem that needs to be addressed. It doesn't happen, just to be clear. It happens in the alley more than anything else. The switch is that they will then attempt to ban in-person sales of guns with cash. They will try to make it so you can only do it via electronic means. I guarantee this. If this passes, and Gifford's people are pushing this because they're deep-seatedly hateful towards the Constitution of the United States. I guarantee within a couple of years, if this passes in the state of New York, they will move to try to ban cash purchasing of guns, or possibly altogether. Let's say, well, we're living in a current year. We've got electronics now, and it's much better. You shouldn't be able to use cash in the stores. Everything should be digital so that we can make sure that you're not doing anything wrong. You watch and you wait and fucking goddamn see. Official Sticks prediction. Go ahead and clip this out and pop it up, assuming that this actually passes. And I think it's iffy. I think that might be a hard sell, especially after Bruin. The Grizzly. I was watching a salty vid and a bunch of LGBT members beat on a straight pride march, and the media buried the story because members of a certain alphabet community can never be wrong, even when being violent. Yeah, many such cases. I mean, it happens. People are basically just more evolved versions of chimps anyway, so we beat each other and do crazy things. That's how wars start. Josie, YouTubers I know still complain about algorithm bias. BitChute and Rumble exist, but they don't want to join or do exclusives. The comment section on BitChute can be Thunderdome, but it sounds like they are lazy and all talk. Yeah, so many creators will establish a presence on these sites and then never do anything with it, with the exception of those that are completely banned. So Stefan Molyneux, all of his things are exclusives now. That dude who just got banned a while ago, Andy something or other, I can't remember his name, him, Alex Jones in InfoWars. I seem to be the only person still standing on mainline tech who makes a concerted effort to popularize alt tech sites. I seem to be the only one. I feel like a voice in the desert sometimes, honestly. But I'm doing it not just out of the kindness of my heart. Just to be clear, I consider it to be potentially very lucrative because I'm convinced that old line tech is going to collapse at some point because of their own shitty decision making. And if that happens, those of us with very, very large audiences, 6 figures on both BitChute and Rumble, oh boy, is it going to be a goddamn field day, because we'll be leapfrogged ahead by years ahead of our competitors. I see this as a very good position to be in, especially ahead of elections that virtually guarantee the purging of content creators. All of a sudden, they're going to start dragging their audiences over to these sites. Rumble and BitChute and Minds and Gab and Parler and Getter and Subscribestar and Rumble and everything else under the sun. But they're going to be coming from behind. And it's going to benefit people like us as those platforms grow. We're already more visible on the platforms because we spent the time to make exclusive content. I've made hundreds and hundreds of exclusive videos for new tech sites. I didn't make one today again because the cat decided to abuse its sister. I consider this an investment of my time. Troublesome Boner. Why are people afraid to remove Biden? Kamala is worse optically, but they both take their orders from the same people. Wouldn't a President Kamala just hurt Democrats and make no difference otherwise? Yeah, absolutely. But you don't have the votes to remove Biden. The Republicans don't control the House. Skycloud Rain, of all Fed agencies, which do you suppose is the most corrupt? CIA, FBI, DEA, HS, IRS, or the DOD? That's a really hard one. I would say all of them. I'd say the ATF probably is at the top of the list. I guess the DEA would be up there. Kyle Miller, looks like Biden is up in the polls. Turns out that you can use taxpayer money to buy votes. That is not reflected in any of the current polling because it's too recent to be reflected in any of those polling periods. So we have to wait and see actually what effect that has. He's up in the polls in approval, but his disapproval barely moved, which shows me one very important thing. It's really more about the deal with Manchin and Schumer, and it has to do with the reabsorption of the soft support back into the Biden zeitgeist. He's reabsorbed people who already before supported him, but they were upset because he didn't do enough. It's not new support. It's mostly Dem partisans and leftists anyway. They were going to vote straight Democrat in the midterms, so I wouldn't read too much into it. Plenty of time for him to fail to pass these things before midterms and get attacked for dragging his heels, by the way. Fit and Fire, stay strapped or get clapped. A lot of wins with gun control to include the issue of first concealed carry license in Hawaii. New Jersey has started issuing licenses too. Support FPC and GOA, yes, Gun Owners of America, very good. And the Firearms Policy Coalition, I follow them both. Yes, absolutely, everyone should own guns. Literally everyone in the United States should have a gun, unless they're a violent felon or a lunatic or something, or they're too young. Absolutely. I would say I want updates on Vermont because they have mag restrictions and stuff like that. I'm wondering if there's a pending lawsuit there. Skycloud Rain, not just guns. They want to get rid of cash for everything. That's why I force myself to use cash and shop local as much as I can. Yeah, I use it interchangeably with a debit card. I would never buy a credit card or anything. Greentop LLC, YouTube blocked my explanation of why CCs are used to buy pews a lot. Too late and too long didn't read as you can get the best deal online and have it shipped to your state. I do it a lot. Yeah, I mean, you can get a gun shipped into a local FFL and get it that way. Oftentimes, that's the only way that certain models will be available, actually. Like if I want to check Scorpion, I'm probably not going to find it in Rutland. I'd be lucky to find it in the Burlington area. I'd probably have to shop for 5 or 6 stores to find something similar to it. Although there was one tactical pistol, I think it was an AR pistol, that was available before I left Rutland before. I really kicked myself for not having bought it. I really should have gotten that because it looked pretty on point. The good stuff. I'm actually in the Republic of Georgia right now. Very interesting. I'm assuming you mean the country. Yeah, just yeah, I guess I don't speak. I think Georgian, literally. Any Cyrillic language, you'd have to look it up. You can probably find some site that has spooky shit listed on it if you want to go and see things that are, religious or occult or something. Crazy Loon, would you say Lotus Eaters encourages alt tech? Well, I use the term new tech generally now. I misspoke earlier. To an extent, yeah. I mean, I think they're big on Rumble as well as on BitChute and Odyssey. But more needs to be done. Creators should make exclusive content, number one, and also link out not just that content, but the sites themselves on the mainline tech sites. There's a reason why Twitter blocked BitChute links for a while, and now they just have a warning screen on them. And by the way, I think even the Shoot Rocks links have the warning screen now. They went and did a workaround. They do that because they want to stop the bleeding away from old line tech. Shaquiz Dogemeyer, there's a lolcow online right now who is a trans individual doxing people left and right and was recently given a check mark by Twatter. Yes, I'm aware of that story. Twitter continues to fuck itself. Battle Dwarf, wondering about your thoughts on the Wizard School in upstate New York, Vermontish. Love the lives while I tile. Clank on. Yeah, I've heard of the Gray School of Wizardry, and had been contacted by them actually with a potential deal to make paid occult content, like a lecture series. And I turned it down because, I already have so much shit out there for free, and I'd like to just sort of keep that up. It's just not my bag to try to capitalize on spiritual topics. But they seem pretty cool. I get a lot of content there. So I think I might visit that someday. Aussie's Robots, the Great Reset was planned decades in advance, is unified and operates above governments. Food, airlines, energy, population, etc. have been discussed since the 70s, yet majority of lemmings are oblivious. True. The Grizzly, what do you think of the Texas open carry law being injuncted? Do you think a higher court will appeal? If not, would you hope for a SCOTUS case? I don't think there will be any attempt to maintain the under 21 ban on handgun carrying there. It was shot down recently. And I think I mentioned that in a live stream, actually. Texas had banned 18 to 20-year-olds from carrying pistols in public, and that was shot down. I can't imagine in the state of Texas anyone's going to bother trying to maintain it. Shark dentures. New tradition, gun from 15th birthday gift for all. Yeah, when liberals want 16-year-olds to vote, I hope they realize that they are extending the right to get an ID and go buy a gun to 16-year-olds. The good stuff. Would you do Rumble exclusives? I do, actually. I make exclusives on new tech sites. So they go on Rumble, BitChute, Odyssey, and Minds. They don't go on YouTube. I make one, most every day. Biden's dilated sphincter. Pet Cemetery, most underrated Ramones song, yes or no? Yes. Although I Want to Be Sedated is on that list too. Chromium, Sticks, moved from California to North Carolina. Advice on the political landscape here. Get ready for more of a swing state thing, but it really depends. These days, it's more urban versus non-urban than anything else. So you've got the city centers are blue, the rural and small town areas are red, and the suburbs are sort of swing state territory. And so it sort of depends on how many cities the state has. So there's a reason why the Dakotas are, for instance, red. There are a few exceptions. Vermont, for example, doesn't have any major cities, yet it's massively blue. I see that changing in the future, by the way. Certainly is in New Hampshire. Next news story actually involves Rumble. Big tech censorship. Rumble's popularity rises as users seek alternative platforms. Yes, indeed. New tech is on the rise once more because old tech keeps banning more and more people. And the problem for them is that they're going to continue to be encouraged to do so merely by the fact that those are large platforms. Meanwhile, attempts to deplatform Rumble and BitChute and Subscribestar, etc., have largely failed. You had that Reuters hit piece, for example. Greatest example. 2016 election period, shortly thereafter. BitChute and Odyssey and so forth start picking up the pace. You had as well, what was it called back then? VidMe at the time. I was one of their top 10 creators. Then they screwed all the political commentators by removing it from trending, by the way. Just to be clear, don't alienate the political commentators that are building your fucking platforms. That's good advice. During that period, there were a bunch of hit pieces released against these sites. And there were also all sorts of censorship resulted. payment processors blocking people, links being blocked, investment deals going through, et cetera, et cetera. Now you're not seeing that. You saw the Reuters hit piece only a few days ago. What happened? Everyone laughed at it. The few people that paid attention to it thought it was humorous. We've come a long way over the last half decade in resisting, in my opinion, censorship. The Sacred Order of Knightly Valor. What's the difference between Cirque du Soleil and the Dem Party? Cirque du Soleil is a cunning array of stunts. I get the reference. The Rubicon, Tim Pool's ombudsman. What is too young on my daughter's 7th birthday? I took her to the mountain forest shoot for the first time. Both of my girls are great shots. Yeah, I mean, if a parent is instructing a child on how to fire firearms and there's no age limit, basically the age limit is just to buy a firearm. Texas had retained people who are 18 to 20, so they are adults, members of the militia, the inability to carry those weapons in public places. This was deemed unconstitutional. Inversion World 2020 sent $1.99. No comment, thank you. Battle Elf shall not be infringed. No exceptions. Exactly. Danielle DeFries. I love the Ramones version of Needles and Pins. I don't think I've heard that one. By the way, how many people are watching? We've got over 5,000 people right now watching the stream. Already much higher than yesterday at peak. Excellent. So yeah, Rumble is really rising, and there is a link, by the way, if you're watching this on YouTube, go in the description. There is a link to my Rumble channel, as well as BitChute, Odyssey, and all of the others. Keep in mind, I make a video every day, well, 99% of days, that is exclusive to those platforms. It's usually much more spicy than what I put on YouTube, because YouTube won't let you talk about certain medical things, certain political things, certain news topics, certain people at times. People getting banned for mentioning someone who has been doxxed, even if they are a public official. That happened before with Sierra Mella. Crazy Loon. Love, I Want to Be Sedated, and the story behind it. I didn't know there was a story behind it, but I like the song. I remember there was a CD I got back in, I don't know, when I was a kid. I don't even know if I was in high school, called Sedated in the 80s. And it was based, I guess, on that song. And it was sort of like the B-side collection of kind of sort of almost hits from the 1980s. And some of the songs were fucking really great. They had a Saved by Zero and shit like that. Stuff that was a little bit more obscure than, you know, the top 40 sort of songs. UN inspectors head to Ukrainian nuclear plant at the center of radiation disaster fears. The International Atomic Energy Agency mission is set to arrive at the Russia-occupied Zaporizhzhia power plant in southern Ukraine later this week. I probably butchered the pronunciation, but I'm doing my best. There is a fly trying to distract me. Let's see if I can murder it. Oh, yeah. Ta-da. Now the cat can eat it, I suppose. All right, cats, it's treat time. Yeah, PETA will probably flag the fucking video now. The UN is now getting involved at Europe's largest nuclear plant because the Ukrainians and the Russians, apparently they didn't learn from Chernobyl. Russia, of course, heading the Soviets at the time, Ukraine being the location. Apparently, they learned absolutely nothing because they keep hitting each other with mortars right next to a nuclear power plant. It was even disconnected from the power supply the other day briefly, although they reestablished it. The Ukrainians hooked it back up. This is a terrible idea. The problem is in an active war zone, if you end up with a meltdown, how the fuck are you supposed to counteract it? When Chernobyl went up, after an initial period of about 48 hours basically ignoring the problem, the Soviets mobilized literally everything under the sun. They had makeshift lead-plated armored bulldozers and crazy shit like that. They had protective gear that was very makeshift and again, like lead plates bolted into leather, just slapped together and just like go on the roof, shovel some debris off. You've got 2 minutes and then you have to come back down and you've done your service. And they had little medals actually they gave people. They looked kind of cool at the time. It was like a blood drop with the radiation symbol around it. It'd be fun to find one of those on eBay. That'd be kind of cool. I do actually collect pins from the Soviet Union, even though I hate communism. Those are pretty fun because they gave out little awards for literally everything. If you had all of them, you probably would not be able to fit them on a fucking trench coat. Anyway, they had helicopters and vehicles pressed into service. They had massive tens of thousands of volunteers, and they got to work and effectively buried the whole fucking site. They dumped borated water on it. They covered it in soil and earth. They built this old sarcophagus that then they had to replace with the new one. because the old one sucked, but they made it, and they prevented a larger disaster. There was also a problem where the corium initially was threatening to seep through into the groundwater supply. It would have released either a massive explosion or it would have poisoned all the water in that entire watershed, which happened to be a very large one. The problem is that that was in a peacetime. Well, I mean, it's the Cold War, but it's within the Soviet Union. This would not be. This would be in a war zone, in an area that's contested by two different countries. So who goes in and does the work? You would need coordination between Ukraine and Russia that simply does not exist. And the Russians aren't about to allow international forces in to do it. You would end up with it probably suffering a multiple meltdown. That is, one reactor goes off, and then the rest start going off. At some point, it becomes so radioactive, I'm sorry, I don't even think robots would be able to cope. Remote-controlled vehicles they tried to send into Fukushima kept malfunctioning. Same in Chernobyl, actually. They had primitive robotic vehicles back then when that went up, and they would last a few minutes usually. Battle Elf, Where Eagles Dare, greatest punk rock song ever. Albie, Great African Windmill of Peace will rise again. Yeah, no, on Pixel Planet, let me check. Yeah, I mean, we're doing some good work there. You can also go down and help fix the Ouroboros, although right now it's got a big green blob on its tail. Looks like a monstrosity. We've basically wiped out their giant swastikas. Pale Blue, why don't you have a presence on Parler? Noticed you have a presence on basically every other platform. Why not Parler? Warm regards from Texas. I actually am on Parler. I just don't have that link in the description of the descriptions on my videos because it's too much to link. I don't have room for it. At some point, when you get down near the bottom, people aren't paying attention anyway, so it becomes a throwaway. So yeah, the UN is now sending inspectors, and they'll probably issue a report saying, well, there was some damage and the Russians definitely caused it. It'll be very one-sided. This antagonism will, by the way, not particularly be helpful. The problem is, if there is a problem at the plant, if there's a meltdown or a disaster of some sort, how do you fix it? And then how do people all over Europe not get irradiated? I mean, it certainly would be a problem that would affect both Ukraine and Russia. It would also affect every other country in the northern hemisphere of the entire world. And the Russians, I don't think, would give a shit. The Grizzly, did you know there's a game about a second Chernobyl disaster? It's called Stalker. Lol, ready for mutants and anomalies? Definitely heard of it, yes. Aaron C., Ukraine is bombing it. It's Russian-held. Yeah, the Ukrainians claim that the Russians accidentally fired off munitions and they landed in their own footprint, however, and that the Russians are using it for storage of weapons. The Russians claim otherwise. Fog of war, you don't know, I don't know. The UN inspectors won't know. Maybe even the Ukrainians and the Russians don't quite know their command. There's too much propaganda being flung around. Gnarly Ranger. Upon looking at Pixel Planet, I'm comforted that there are more clankers on the Virginia Eastern Shore than I thought. Yeah, we're also taking over New York State. Drive-by commenter. Can it be said that most lefty centralization of political power throughout human history can be tied to an unhealthy egotism and know-it-alls? Yes, NIMBYism. Kaczynski had a bit about that in his writings. Boriquautimus. Would you ever shave your beard and cut your hair? Nope. No, I'm leaving it the way it is. Joshua Beckett, the World of Warcraft funeral raid featuring Where Eagles Dare was hilarious. Also, Ramones, Needles and Pins is indeed fantastic. Next story. Now, this is a boomer tape. Is God punishing the United States of America? Now, when you read this, your initial reaction, don't read the article yet. Probably, oh my God, some neocon boomers talking about the Democrats are back on a roll or something like that. And they're about to whine about how we forsook Jesus Christ or something. We went too far left. Trans activism, gay marriage or something like that. Nope. Actually, if you go down through it, you'll find that this is a leftoid article. Whining and whining about all of the evils of Trump and climate change, the catastrophic weather in the U.S., the American homeless crisis, the U.S. mass shooting crisis and the evil of gun ownership, a U.S. civil war between Democrats and Republicans, mainly talking about how Trump is evil and forsakes common sense and doesn't believe in the election results. This is by a leftoid. This is by a liberal. rather. This has been a steady trend that I've noticed for a number of years. It kind of begins actually in the wake of the Catholic Pope being a Marxist, which is that people who are more liberal have become more receptive towards the Jesus thing. And the right wing has sort of pushed the evangelicals to the sidelines. I'm almost wondering if that may not complete the current paradigm flipping, where the Republicans, they gather up all the union Dems, and the Democrats, they end up gathering up a bunch of evangelicals or something. It would completely reshuffle the electoral map. And it's, by the way, that sort of reshuffle has happened 6 times in U.S. history prior, most notably post-Civil War. I mean, if you look through the article, it's a total boomer take about religion and about all of the issues plaguing us. But it sounds like the sort of thing you would have heard in like 2005 made by Rush Limbaugh. This looks like the kind of article you would find made by somebody or like Karl Rove or something, you know, a decade or a decade and a half ago. But it's a liberal article from the Jerusalem Post talking about how God must hate us because, you know, we won't ban guns. God hates us because Republicans evil, you know, conservatives wrong. God hates us because we've got bad weather. You know, people in the medieval era used to think that too. They used to sacrifice an animal once in a while as a result of this. When Americans turn to prayer in crisis, I think that more is accomplished by going to the ballot box. You have to be on your feet to do that, as opposed to kneeling and sitting there. Just to be clear, massive boomer take, absolutely hilarious that that's a liberal article. Again, I never would have guessed that you would see that. I mean, as a millennial who remembers the Bush era and the moralism, you know, who was it? I think it was Ashcroft covering up the nudity of the statues all over DC and shit. You never would have guessed that you'd have an article that sounds like it was written by a very religious person that was pointing to the problems of society as being evidence of potentially God hating you, but it's from a liberal perspective. Just absolutely blows my mind. I had to cover that one, even if it's not a major topic, just to get that off of my chest. As a core millennial who remembers the Bush era, it rubs me the wrong way. E100 Omega 123. Affidavit, page redacted. Trump, page redacted. Is, page redacted. Guilty, page redacted. Propaganda media, Trump is guilty. That's basically, that's basically how it works. John Ashley Smith is completely wrong, predicting when Styx goes gray, he'll cut it. I already have some gray hairs, but they're all coming in that nice silvery white color, so I'm going to look like fucking Saruman. And I don't have any hair loss or thinning or anything like that, so I'm going to be a goddamn wizard. It's going to be great, actually. I'm going to start wearing a robe in my live streams. It might take a while. I might just literally dye it like platinum at some point. Once it's like 25% gray, what the fuck, you know, why even keep up appearances? I'll dye that and my beard, and I'll just declare myself to be a wizard, and it'll be like the coolest day in all of my content creation. I'm looking forward to my gray hairs, actually. Sketch therapy. Catholics have gone full commie in the papacy. Yeah, I know. The Pope has expressed his own Marxist beliefs, quite literally. Next one, editorial. Yes, California just banned the sale of new gas cars. This is a big deal. This is by the LA Times editorial board, because remember, the people on the editorial board at the LA Times, these people make at least reasonable 6 figures, so they have no problem with gas cars being banned. There are so many problems with this. The first problem is that it phases in and doesn't actually take full effect till 2030. The second problem is electric vehicles are a goddamn meme. You already have power problems with your grid, and you want to hook up many more very, very energy inefficient things to that grid. That's going to require a huge amount of investment and an enormous amount of lithium mined in China. This has been even openly spoken of by environmental nuts, by the way. The third problem is, let's say I'm in LA. Okay, I'm in California. I can't go to the dealership and buy a gas-powered car. How sad. I can go to another state to get one, or I can buy one used, because this affects manufacturers, or I can buy one from a friend, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I can get one imported. It's not going to stop the most efficient mode of transportation, which is gas-powered cars. They are cheaper than EVs. They are more environmentally friendly, I would add, too, because they don't have to have massive-ass batteries that cost 20 grand a piece in them. It's not going to stop them from existing. Other states will clean up. Imagine you're over in Nevada near the California border, and there are several good-sized cities near you, or you're in Oregon or something near the border, and you've got a car dealership. Oh, you must be applauding this so much right now. You must be so goddamn happy. Now, the next step is they would try to go after gas stations. They might try to mandate, well, every gas station has to have electrical pumps. We're only allowed to have so many gas stations per 100,000 population or something. Well, then the gas stations will celebrate because they're going to make much, much more money. They'll be able to charge more for the gas. That's what'll happen. The free market will fix this problem, by the way. California is destroying itself. They've lost how many fucking people have left California over the last 10 years? Their population is shrinking rapidly. I mean, they're going to be a dead state at some point if they don't deal with their problems. Yes, you shall not pass. Yes, no, I'll look more like Saruman, I think, because Gandalf has a big nose and his hair was more cloudy gray. Mine is coming in more silver. I have no problem with this, by the way. I'd be much more concerned if I was balding than having gray hair, because the former doesn't happen to everyone. There are some old dudes, it always gets a little thinner. That happens to everyone, especially in their 30s, 40s, 50s. But there are some old dudes, they still have pretty much a full head of hair. I'd like that. I don't care what color it is. And I can always dye it. But I'm certainly not getting a bunch of fucking hair transplants or something. Next story. Watch. Joe Rogan says to vote Republican in response to honk honk shutdowns. We won't mention exactly what this article pertains to. It has to do with a certain disease that we're not allowed to frankly discuss on many big tech sites. Even if YouTube has loosened up some, and Rumble, of course, you have no problem with it. I figure that it's out of prudence here. Just a second, though. On Rumble, not that Brandon. God allowed atrocities like the Uvalde shooting because of evil Trump and America not living up to the neocon, neolib, warmongering ideal? It does sound like the biblical God. Total bullshit. Agreed. And Jon Snow, Sticks, have you checked out Steve Bannon's War Room? Best political podcast, in my opinion. 10 p.m. Eastern, starts in an hour on Real America's Voice. Sometime we should clank on them if they've got a YouTube stream. That'd be funny. We've done that to Scott Adams and Anomaly and a bunch of other people, so why not? It's all in good fun. But anyway, Joe Rogan is telling people they should vote Republican if they don't want more lockdowns, more shutdowns, rather. And I partially agree with him. And keep in mind, I've got my criticisms of Joe Rogan. He's got Trump derangement syndrome. He's sort of like a Jesse Ventura figure in that he moves all over politically, depending on the subject, and it's usually geared to getting more viewers. By straddling that line and saying something that really makes the Republicans happy, and then something that makes the Democrats really happy, and sort of bouncing around ideologically, you end up with more of an audience. Even if some people are just hate watching you at some point, you end up getting more money. That's what he's in it for. His deal with Spotify is still there. He's making the absolute bank, more money than you could ever conceive of doing that. Here's the part where he's wrong. There are Republicans that went along with it. The neocon types are just on board with the idea of lockdownerism. That's because it will help to cripple the small businesses that keep big corporations in check, and it's the big corporations that own people like Cornyn and Romney. Most of them, though, are indeed Democrats. Most of them are liberals. There is a sheer partisan split in the United States with regards to the reception of that kind of economic thing, and the Democrats 80-20 are the ones guilty of that. But you still have to be choosy. You can't simply vote straight Republican, because there might be a couple of landmines in that nice fertile field waiting for you if you do so. I would say the same thing to liberals. You like the Democrats generally. That's fine. I disagree with you, but I support your right to be stupid. But don't vote straight ballot, because there may be one in there who's like a Joe Manchin and you're not going to like them. Or maybe you're more on that side of things, while there might be an AOC in there who you find unpalatable. Make sure to do at least some basic research. It's funny. People always blame the politicians. Oh my God, our elected leaders are so screwed up. But you don't even know anything about 90% of the people that you're voting for. You just vote straight ballot, half of you. You shouldn't do that. If you don't know anything about the race, you should write in Mickey Mouse or something. You should write in Tarl Warwick for literally everything. Where you don't know who's running, or you don't care, or you don't like the person running unopposed, just write in my name. All right, I'm standing for every office in the fucking United States in the 2022 election, okay? Battle Elf. George Soros has a flowing silver mane. He does? I thought he had like really sparse hair all over the place, because he's like fucked up like, what's his name there? There's that one dude, I think he finally kicked the bucket. He was like 100,000 years old. Is it Rothschild? I can't remember. They all sort of run together at some point. E100 Omega 123, isn't one of the tenets of fascism government control of private industry and media? Why did Trump let himself get smeared by the press and kicked off Twitter? Worst fascist ever. Yeah, I agree. And then we've got a funny story here at the end before we rant briefly. This one's great. Nikki Fried made a post the other day, and I'll just read these verbatim. I may have lost my primary, but at least I've never put on a fighter pilot costume to pretend I was Tom Cruise without the looks, charm, or skills. If this were, by the way, a male former politician saying this about a female, it would be called sexist. So Nikki Fried is being a sexist against men. Cat Turd showed up to troll her. Cat Turd posted, "You didn't just lose, it was a landslide." Then she loses in a landslide by responding because apparently she didn't look at the fucking username or know anything about the fucking user. Cat Turd, fairly notorious on Twitter, just to be clear. Not a great idea to react this way, but here's what she said. When you get the balls to run for office, give me a call. Until then, yeah, okay. And she gets massively ratioed. It's like 10-1 on here. I love some of the posts. Polly posting, if you're upsetty or feeling regretty, eat some spaghetti. Someone's needing some spaghetti. And people posting cats. For fuck's sake, meow meow. Copium 2000. Cat Turd says you suck, so I guess you could say things are getting pretty serious. I mean, the follow-up is even funnier than the original exchange. People are just completely in awe that Nikki Fried actually managed to get trolled. It's like, check the username. You know that this person is not necessarily, they're not trying to do serious political commentary. You're pretending to, although your post too is nuts. To be clear, DeSantis happens to be a naval lieutenant who is still part of the reserve force in the state of Florida. Again, I don't know exactly how a sitting political official can still be part of a reserve force, but he is. Therefore, he has every right to put on a pilot suit and sit in a cockpit if he wants to. He's the governor. He's technically kind of sort of in the military at the moment. Nobody gives a fuck, and nobody really gives a shit. They tried to AstroTurf this is a major loss for him. Yeah, look at his opponent in the polls. Look at Christ. And by the way, Christ completely crushing Nikki Fried. It wasn't even remotely close. It was slightly beyond what I expected, if I remember correctly. I find it absolutely hilarious. She keeps getting owned over and over, though. Go, look through her fucking timeline if you have a Twitter account. United to flip Florida blue. And just all this crazy... I like this. Nikki Fried, this is why you must condemn these groups, Ron, trying to talk to DeSantis. Like he's going to give you the time of day. He knew that you would lose. He didn't even treat you as an opponent. Neo-Nazi group National Socialists of Florida has been popping up more and more lately in St. Pete and city of Tampa to spread hateful propaganda. MIA Against Fash has done diligent work in trying to unmask them. Yeah, and you go to that and you'll find, okay, there's 6 or 7 feds. Yeah, they probably handed out it's okay to be white papers and stuff. Then they went into their van and summoned several teenagers and offered to sell them explosives. Hey, kid, want to blow up a federal building? That's basically what all these groups boil down to, it seems. Not nearly as much hate in people's heart as the people who make money off of hate in people's heart would like you to believe. Huns with guns. You should braid your hair in a Q style like a Chinese man from the 1800s. Yeah, I'd have to get definitely quite wasted to do that. I'd have to be 3 sheets to the wind like the Prime Minister of fucking Finland. I am right. Razor sticks. What's a good argument against liberals who say stating your pronouns is a good thing and costs nothing, so we should all do it? I would say because you don't want to list your pronouns, because you want people to assume them. I don't want somebody to say she or her to me because then it's like it's an insult. You're insinuating that I look effeminate. I have a beard, so that would be a little bit difficult. But if I was clean shaven and put heavy makeup on, okay, I would maybe feel a little bit weird about that. If somebody's like addressing Liz and tries calling her he, I'd be like, what? I think they were drunk. You shouldn't have to list your pronouns. It should be self-evident. The Brujo, speaking of wizards, you'd be a great Harry Dresden. Must be willing to ride Sue the T-Rex through Chicago to battle necromancers. I've got no clue what that refers to. Yeah, to Larry Moose, with regards to the energy prices here, we can weather it, to be clear. That's number one. And number two, I have a feeling it's going to get bad in the United States too anyway. Less bad, but the prices will be rising. And the winters here aren't cold anyway. I think when people say, well, the Netherlands is so cold and dreary, I'm like, what? It's warmer than Rutland. My home state looks like Siberia 4 months out of the year. What the fuck are you talking about? I can live in an igloo back in Rutland in February. Here you get no snow at all. You still got green ivy year-round. Dr. Ron Paul, it appears that Gavin McInnes faked his whole arrest and is claiming it as a joke. Credibility shot. I will look that up. That would be... that true? No, I'm not seeing any update on that. I'm seeing the pros saying Gavin McInnes raided by feds live on air, allegedly sitting in jail right now. Although that's an Anglin article, so maybe not take it to the bank. I'm not seeing anything like that. Sketch therapy. I don't like DeSantis. Red flag laws. He should stop that. Agreed. That was not one of his finer moments. By the way, please don't send any more super chats cross-platform, because I got to do other stuff too. I've got to cook vegetable soup tonight. We're at 6,200 live viewers cross-platform. Almost 2,000 on Rumble, by the way. Big shout out to everyone on Rumble. Please do make sure to share my existence on there with all of your friends and family and link it out as much as you can. I have a feeling that new tech is going to be the place to be over the coming years as old tech bans every worthy content creator that they possibly can. I just think if I just get a strike, I can't stream for 2 weeks on YouTube. I'll only be streaming on Rumble at that point because BitChute doesn't have that capability yet. Denine-S, his little boy was adorable in that ad. Gavin from Red Dead Redemption 2. Jesus. Yeah. So anyway, I'm going to go off. We've gone for more than an hour here. I do have other things to do. Also do another news gathering and shit. I try to do some of it a day early because some things, they're in the news cycle for multiple days. So if there's something really big, I try to get it the day before, actually. And then I check the morning news as well, which takes a little while because morning is relative, especially when most of your topics are from the US and you happen to be in part of Europe. So yeah. Some great shit we covered today. I think the Nikki Fried one is definitely my favorite, though, just because she's so pathetic. You lost by double digits against Christ, of all people, who was formerly a conservative anyway, and you're still bitching, and then you get owned by Cat Turd on Twitter. Jesus. Anyway, yeah, I'm going to go offline now. That's about all.